to the cloud. Hey there, it's Jacqueline, your matchmaker and creator of Discover Love Academy. We are so excited to give you our second quarter of experts in presentation, and we are really, really blessed because we are now getting a chance to meet again with Dr. LeslieBeth Wish, and she has so much incredible information to share. We added so much last time, so I'm excited for the expansion, and it's been just a joy for people to learn from her and then be ready to learn more. So before we go into all of the topics and questions and good juicy stuff, I would love for you, LB, to introduce yourself to our wonderful group.
Thank you, and hello, and thank you again for deciding to listen to this conversation, because there's so many choices that you have. So I'm going to be really brief. The most important thing you need to know about me is that everything I say to you is based on research-based tips and advice that have been tested. That's very important to me. You know, so many times you go to the self-help book aisle, whatever it's called now, in the bookstore, or you browse Amazon, and there's just so many books on everything, and you don't know, who is this person? And I know I've been there, and I don't like buying books that I regret buying or watching videos that I regret watching. So everything I say is grounded. It has roots in it, and it's been tested, not just with my family or my best friends or neighbors, but with thousands of women.
Right.
The other thing to know is that I have always been interested in helping people boost their intuition, because intuition is a part of all decision making, small decisions, large decisions. And sometimes when we're not sure as to which way to go, often without even knowing it, we fall back on that expression, go with your gut. That's our tag language for saying trust your intuition. And that could be a good thing or a bad thing, because sometimes your intuition can be strong, but it can be wrong.
Exactly. I love that. And it was so exciting. Like, I remember after our last call, I was just really, really amped up with excitement of having someone talk to my incredible audience with such a clear direction, a clear focus, and actually has backup information on it, where I do feel a lot of times that it's really easy to be like, oh, I'm an expert because I've gone on a bunch of dates. And it's like, there's so much more to it. There's so much more information and feedback from our clients and on our own journey. So it's wonderful that you have taken it to the extra level. And I really, really appreciate that about you.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. And today we'll be talking about perhaps going over some of the other things we did, because they're still part of the foundation. But I want your viewers and listeners to bear in mind that intuition signals, I call them tells, coming from within you and from other people, those don't have to be experienced primarily in your gut. There are lots of other ways that people experience their intuition. And the reason the term gut instinct got to be so important is that there is almost a neural highway between your brain and your stomach. It's just filled with, without going into all the details, when your stomach flip-flops, I've got butterflies in my stomach, your brain interprets it as anxiety. But imagine all the neural cords that go from your brain down your spine to your tummy. It does make sense that some of us, myself included, don't always experience our intuitive tells as coming from our gut. So the first thing that your listeners and viewers need to think about is, how do I experience my intuition? What is my unique intuitive fingerprint? Because it is like a fingerprint.
Mm-hmm.
My feelings don't come from my gut. Where do yours come from?
Right. Mine is very heart-based, and then it is actually kind of interesting. It'll be like the low gut, even in my reproductive organs. Like, I can feel a tension in that lower pelvis when I'm like, ooh, that's a negative, but then a higher up when it's a positive. So it is very interesting. Like I get that vibration, and I'll even get, because I'm very, very spiritual, I get a sensation down my left arm when it's like a total high five. Like when it is spot on, I got to go do this. All of a sudden I'm like, whoa, my arm is feeling all tingly, and it's definitely, that's like my neon sign. I'm on it. This is good.
Well, I'm glad you offered that, because too many people get stuck into thinking, well, I don't feel it in my gut. For me, I've never felt it in my gut. A lot of my research participants and clients have felt things like you mentioned, your arm, they get tingling. Some people messages as though there's like the loudspeaker at the airport, and instead of telling you what gate to go to, it says, don't do this, girl, or do this. Yeah. For me, my tell comes from outside my body. I think I talked about this before. It's like a thump on my chest. And you can't mistake it. It isn't a little touch. It's like whack. And I go, whoa. Right. So it's so important to start there. And you need practice in it. That's the first step to listen to.
Exactly. And that is so important, is that communication from what you're thinking in your mind, what you're thinking in your heart, and the environment around you. And that is why I feel so strongly that your topic that we're talking about today is crucial, because people are missing those moments. I mean, it's part of what makes us stop and go, you know what, I shouldn't go down that street. I should go a different way. And when we fight it, we usually later say, something in me kind of told me I really shouldn't go to this, or I shouldn't go to that event, or I should have gone to that event and I completely missed out, but I was letting myself over worry or overthink about it. So knowing what those triggers are, but also learning how your body is communicating with you, positive and negative, to it, is so powerful.
You mentioned something really important there too. I mean, you've got lots of little nuggets, and the thing you said is the reference to the regret of doing something or not doing something. And so that's so critical, because we have emotional blind spots that make us miss, or, in what you were saying, dismiss. Both can happen. You miss the signal, or you receive it and you go, oh, that's stupid. It's too woo-woo. It's too out there. I'm too embarrassed to even say to myself, I'm going to listen to that little tale. I've had them when I've gone out the door from the kitchen to the garage to get in the car, and something stops me. That's that stop sign feeling. And I think, and then I'll hear the message in my head, don't take Bee Ridge Road today, where you go. Now, I've learned to listen to that. In the past, I would have said, what? I must have been watching the news and heard that word, or read the ad, or street names. I mean, you think, how stupid is that? Could it really be that specific? What am I, like cuckoo, So I learned, and then I look at the local news later at night, and sure enough, I'm batting 1,000 so far. There was an accident on Bee Ridge Road. So, don't be afraid of embarrassing yourself or feeling uncomfortable. It's so important that you don't dismiss, and that you don't miss out on what your own unique tells are.
Exactly. And I love that. Yeah, there was a day recently during the holiday season that I was like, telling my daughter to check her route. And I normally do it because it's a pretty short route. And she was like, oh, yeah, it says do some back roads. I was like, oh, well, just saying that. I didn't take it, but I knew there was a reason I was asking. And then we got stuck for an hour in traffic because I was like, I didn't look at why it said it, but I knew internally I should have. So it was one of those kind of like, teaching moments. But we forget those, and we miss out on so much too, because we are so glued to what others are expecting of us, is what I'm hearing you talk about. And I notice that a lot. Like when I host events for singles to meet, I'm like, I just really hope the right people are getting this message that they need to show up to attend, because their person could be there if the other person listens too. Like, it's all these signals are being sent out that we're supposed to show up because there's someone we're supposed to meet and allow ourselves to grow. We don't know where that introduction is going to come from, but it's going to make a huge impact.
I absolutely agree, and I really appreciate your expanding that, because It happens in so many ways. And today we're talking about resolutions and Valentine's Day. And it's very easy to dismiss those little warning signs in your body that connect with your thoughts, with who you are.
Right.
And again, I know this is going to sound very outdated, but it is still true that a little bit of difference is between male and female brains. There also are differences, male brain to male brain and female brain to female brain. But in general, because of childbirth, women are more relationship oriented, and that makes sense. It's a survival mechanism for mother-infant care. But it gets in the way sometimes of relationships because our tendency is not to say no, to sacrifice ourselves, to doubt ourselves, to dismiss things, or to say yes to things that we didn't want to say yes to.
Right.
And any woman who says that they haven't said, hasn't regretted a yes or a no when it comes to anything in life, well, then you're just not being honest to yourself.
Right. And honesty to yourself is the most important thing, because that's your own inner dialogue conversation. And I love the title of this class, Boosting Your New Year's Resolve by Boosting Your Intuition. And it's so like, boom, like we need this. We forget. We just kind of mush from one year to the next. We don't kind of tune up and get stronger at this. So I love what you're referring to, what you're bringing into this conversation, because we need permission to stop and realign with what is most important, our own inner conversation and awareness.
So let's get specific. Let's answer some key questions that my clients and other hosts have asked me. So is it important to make New Year's resolutions? I would say let's erase those words New Year's and just say resolutions. Yes.
Oh, I like that.
Very important to make resolutions of some kind. And they don't have to be giant, like lose 20 pounds or something. That, weight loss and is usually right there at the top. But
exactly.
Think differently. Resolutions can be done daily, weekly, monthly, seasonally. Choose what you need to do. I'm a great list maker. I like to have a list, and that becomes my resolution, maybe not for the day, because, anything can happen during a day. Really, you get a phone call, you forget something, someone calls you, your sink breaks, So I don't like adding stress by saying, I've got to finish this resolution list today. So give yourself a little bit of stretch time. I like to do it on a emergency as needs basis at the top, make a doctor's appointment or something, but try to make a weekly list. That's a form of a resolution to get yourself productive and moving forward towards your goals. So that's the first thing to do.
I like that.
That makes
sense.
It's
really important. I'm going to pause on that one for a moment, because I really think it's important for people to understand, like, the whole New Year thing, I feel so strongly, is to make these huge goals to set yourself up for failure. But there is something really powerful to start off the year with this, I want to be better at this detail, this aspect. Maybe it's, I'm going to make sure I get out for more dates with quality people. I'm going to be more attentive when I'm meeting them. I'm going to actually follow up with people that I've been talking with. Like, I love your list. I'm a list person like crazy. I'm constantly making my list. And then the new day I say, okay, what did I not finish? What do I need to do? List is the only way I can keep a balance. So it's always been very, very valuable. And I love that you bring that up, because I think people think they can keep it all up in their heads or even all on their phones, when really there's something about pen to paper right next to your to-do list of everything else.
Absolutely. And let's now hook that up with the answer is already in you. So think to yourself, let's pretend you mentioned getting out and meeting new people. Okay, let's use that as an example. Well, that sounds good, but now you need to ask yourself, and again, I'm a firm believer that the intuitive answer to your issue and the solution is in you. You just have to find it and tease it out. Very important to do. So what I want people to do after they make their to-do list is say to themselves, and preferably write it out, what got in my way? as to why I didn't fulfill this before.
I like that. We have to
What
be
did I
honest. What is
do?
blocking? What is stopping?
Yes. What
Mhm.
do I think? Come on, be honest, shore up. You know, what's really, and you don't have to tell anyone about it. It might be something very deep that you don't want to face, but boy, if you don't unhook that and face up,
Right.
if you don't get that emotional bravery that's required to free up your intuitive tells and your ability not to miss or dismiss them. So you do have to get brave. When I give talks in person and people see my whole body, I'm always wearing my cowgirl boots because that's my
Love
signal. Get brave, get your kicking boots on, you know, get going. So it's okay to make a list. It's okay to give it your own time frame. Some things need to be done for a season. By the end of spring, I would like to, or by the end of this month, or in the next 10 days, you know, it's up to you. Only you know what has to be on your list or what you want to be on your list. But then ask yourself, why didn't I do this before? What is holding me back? So now
right.
let's attach that to your idea of let's get out there and meet people now. Well, why didn't I do that before? Write it down. I think when we write things down, we find that we're quite surprised as what comes out on that paper.
So
It's,
true.
you know, like, oh my God, that thought was in me. That's like a ghost somewhere in there, you know? So write it down. It could be, I haven't lost enough weight. I'm not as pretty as the other girls. Or I'm shy. Or I had a bad experience the last time. Or I don't know how to go up to people. I get jittery inside. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. And if you go even deeper, that's on the here and now level. But if you go deeper, and this is where real change occurs, ask yourself, where in the world did those ideas come from? Where in the world did that brake system come from? And I would say 99% of the time, its origin roots are somewhere in your upbringing. So who told you you weren't as pretty as your sisters? Who told
Right.
you that it's a good thing you are pretty because that's all you got, girl? You know, so very important.
True. That's been so much. It's amazing how many people don't realize that they were raised around it or they were in that environment and they were the ones saying it to them. I mean, culturally and in different environmental families, they were told to say things like that. Oh, you're the pretty one, or oh, you're the heavy one. And it just gets ingrained. And so they think everyone else looks at them that way.
And, you know, I've learned from my many years of postdoctoral training in family therapy and systems, how family systems work. If you don't make assessments and changes at the way back, your family of origin, it doesn't have the power to get you to make changes if you don't address that. Because as my mentor always said, we weren't hatched. There was someone influencing us. You know, you weren't in a shell and you came out, you know, free, full form. You know, something there influenced you. So that's the next thing to do. Let's go over it again. Make a list of what's important to you, whether it's weekly, seasonally, it doesn't matter. Next, ask yourself, why didn't I do this before? What was holding me back? And think back. Go back to your family of origin.
Right.
Think
okay.
Of all the
You're really kind of like how you were raised, the family around you, experiences. Like, do we go back to childhood? Do we go to middle school? Do we go to high school?
As far back as you need.
All of that.
All of it.
Okay.
All of it, anything that, because again, the answer is in you. When I say to people, what was your relationship like with your siblings? How did your parents treat each of you differently? What were some of the things that your parents said to you or about you? In my family, my mother was from the South, and she didn't think that it was really a very good idea for girls to, you know, get lots of education. And she used to sit at the table and say, oh my God, all I have is an egghead for a daughter. Guys don't like smart girls. You're just an egghead. And she would just bemoan the fact that maybe I would never, ever find anyone. And that fact that you had to find someone was also very important. So that's what's buzzing in your head. You need to think
Correct.
about these things. Very,
Yeah,
very.
you have to really think about it and be honest. What have you been hearing? Because it was your normal. It was what you were around. It's what has been holding you back. But so often, how do people know that what's been said really wasn't right? Because that's what they were raised with.
Yes, and the next step then is to say to yourself, these things that my parents and upbringers said to me personally as the one on the receiving end of it, more things about them than about me. So it's very important to say, those statements may or may not be true about me. Let me look and see what I know about my parents, my grandparents, their parents, how much these things apply to them. And that begins to set you a little more free.
I like that. And that is a big part of our, reprogramming what's holding us back. And when you think about it, like with making resolutions, not necessarily New Year's, when is the best time to make a resolution? When is the best time to really step into making these commitments to ourselves?
Again, that goes back to that intuitive answer is in you. Some people need the nudge of it being New Year's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't make New Year's resolutions. I make my resolutions seasonally, and I might add a few on my birthday because that's really where your year begins. So if
Correct. I like that a lot. That's a fun one. I think people need to stop and really honor that. There's the whole world New Year's, but then when's yours? Like looking back, I love to do that on my birthday. Look back over the year. Is this really where I thought I'd be? Is there something I should have been working on? How did I use my calendar year for my goals?
I do things pretty seasonally. By spring, I'd like to have this. By summer, because, it's amazing how little I get done in a day. I'm serious. My list is this long, and I go, I only got 3 things done, and I wasn't sitting around eating bonbons and watching television, because there are distractions. Something happens, a phone call, So, be kind to yourself.
What it is.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, but if that works for you and that's the push you need, the other thing you can do is start a resolution club where you support each other, an online group. And then you can flag someone. I need help. I'm floundering. Am I being too hard on myself?
Yes, I love that. And I love your seasonal comment. I remember getting a massage one day, and the lady was giving the massage. I said, I keep saying I need to get in here more often. And she goes, I just pretty much tell my clients every time the season changes, it's a good time to come in. And that has really stuck with me. Like that makes sense to me, not that I always do with every season change, but it's easier to kind of go, the season's changing, time to reboot my body, realign. And it's not overwhelming because it's 3 months. It's not like you're trying to do so much in a whole year and then suddenly it hits December and you're running behind. And so seasonally is really powerful and doable.
And it reduces your anxiety. You don't go to bed at night saying, I didn't do this and I didn't do that and I'm not making progress on this. Life happens. All kinds of things happen. And so that works for me. It may not work for other people, but experiment. Trust your reaction. See how you feel where your anxiety is.
Exactly. So that's what I'm wondering so what does your intuition really have to do with your resolutions? How does that intertwine?
Well, again, that answer is in you. If you take a little pad of paper and write at the top, things I believe I need to change or work on, you are activating that shadow person inside you. And by doing that, you're pulling out what your intuitive judgment is leading you to write. And it may not be the things that you expect. You might be surprised. Really rely on that. And again, when you write something down on a piece of paper and you reread it and there isn't that connection, maybe you are not addressing your intuitive.
Good.
Maybe that's not a good one for you. Keep writing till you get that, whatever your unique intuitive fingerprint is that says, oh my God, that resonates with me. That's your own aha moment.
It's true. You really have to write it till it does, because how many times do people write things and have on their list of things to get better at because they've kind of heard society talk about it or a friend talk about it, and but their heart's not really in it. So by listening to your intuition, your body will let you know that, you know what, this is one you're ready for. Let's step up for it. And I like that you bring that in. That's so important, because we can get so autopilot on check this, check that. I should have these parts of my chapter. Oh, I thought my life would be here. And later you're like, ugh. You know, use your own time clock.
Definitely. And if you have something on that list that makes you very anxious, that's also an intuitive fingerprint. What am I afraid of? What's blocking me? Why is this causing this? Break it down. And again, I'm a big fan of writing. I don't care if it's a journal or the back of a bill. I mean, I don't, just write something down so you can get what's lurking inside you out there, so you can evaluate it, not only with your judging mind, but with your intuitive reactions.
Yes, and I really think that you're so spot on with what our listeners are craving, is that reminder that, you know, good and bad, sometimes we need to push ourselves. We need to get ourselves in an environment of like, okay, this is something I keep not doing, or I keep putting off, or I keep not fulfilling it. But the question is asking yourself, you know, really what is stopping you? Is it that conversational talk? Is it the shadow person? Is it, you know, what you've been told to think and believe? And so you brought in so many elements to really own what this is about, because, you know, once we make sense out of it and kind of decode things, it's amazing how empowering and how much of a breakthrough things can be in shifting for that new process of your resolution. So you're bringing in such important aspects and powerful. I love the intuition with the resolution, because it's so much always that lose weight, go on vacation more, you know, keep organized, be better at grocery shopping, whatever. But it's never really depth to it. And so when you talk about combining it with your intuition, then there's more purpose-filled direction with your resolutions.
And especially love intuition. Trusting that is so, so important. And what often gets in the way is that we fall back on things that are within our emotional comfort zone. So for example, I had this one client who was divorced, and she was starting to date again, and she kept dating men who gave her the same, whose style of relating put her in the same situation of a pattern that she had repeated over and over, of being the mommy, of being the good listener, of making too many excuses, being too accepting, putting up with things she didn't want, keeping quiet, and saying to herself, it's not that important, it's not that important. I don't need to complain about that. And pretty soon, over time, you've died of 1,000 accommodations. You don't feel like you're present there anymore. So it's so important to know intuitively, what are my patterns and how do I get out of it? And the danger there, of course, is overcorrecting and choosing someone to be your next Valentine, since we're also going to integrate Valentine, to be your next person, and you say to yourself, I am not choosing any more baby men. I am done choosing baby men, or if men are listening, no more basket case women I have to rescue, because they're both rescue moves.
Baby men or basket case women. I love it. The truth is, they exist, and you don't want to date either one of them. So you are spot on, darling.
and you also don't want to overcorrect that mistake by mistaking a person's they've got their act togetherness. They're really a person of authority and command now, which are really good things to have in a person. You want your partner to be reliable. But what often happens is the intuitive judgment goes on mute because you're so anxious to be in a relationship and not have one like you used to have. So it goes on mute. You don't hear your unique fingerprint tells coming from your body. And what you do is you overcorrect, and the chances are that you've misread that person's need for authority and control as a sense of having their act together.
Yes, and it's so easy because you already know how to do those kind of relationships, but that doesn't mean you're happy, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're the wrong person for you. But so often it's kind of like that mold. You just kind of slide right back into it. And then you're later going, gosh, I kind of just dated another. I always kind of refer to it as my paper doll theory, where I feel like people just copy and paste just a new name and it makes you smile. But it doesn't always mean that they date something different, and they already know how to date the other one and it didn't work. So allowing that relationship to come from a different direction is so powerful. Again, going with that intuition is so huge.
It's so important. And, one of the little tricks you can do for yourself to kind of elevate the level to awareness of your intuition is when you're on a date or when you're at an event, go into the ladies' room or the men's room and just get into a stall and say to yourself, what's bothering me? What's feeling good? What's not feeling good?
Mm-hmm.
Is there a sense of too muchness in this person? Is this person talking about themselves a lot? Or is there a too littleness in this person? I don't hear enough about them. Are they too agreeable? It's very good to get that scale. Kind of do an inventory and say to yourself, when have I felt like this before with a potential partner? What was the outcome? What signs am I missing? It takes so much practice. It just takes so much.
So true. And I really like the comment of, you know what, get up during the date and take a little refresher, step out, go to the restroom, and just kind of realign. Because what I've been with people, and I'm like, I'm getting a migraine headache talking to this person. And it sounds so bad, but it's so true when there's not a mutual energy flow, when you're a good conversation person, so they love it. They're eating it up because you know how to talk. But when you're in a situation where you're like, okay, but I'm not getting anything. And that's like, if you go and you start to realize you're getting a headache talking to someone, chances are they're probably kind of like sucking the energy right out of you. And it's hard to notice it till you walk away. So to kind of pause during it, I love that, because I think so often too, people, like, they keep hanging out on a date, kind of hoping it's going to get better. And then when they go to the restroom, that's when they realize, whoa, I should have left sooner. So when do you think is a good time on a date to stop and go, I need a little moment to stop and go, is this going where I want it to, or am I just craving conversation? Or is this someone that I really need to kind of tuck and roll pretty soon?
Well, it can be done at any time, right after. Let's say you're going out to dinner. It could be done right after you order, and you could say ahead of time your date, I hate this when it happens, but my fill in the blank, I have to talk to my mom, or my dog's sick, or I don't care. Give them some reason, or her some reason why you might need, and say, excuse me for a minute, I need to go check on a call to see if a text came in that's very important, whatever, but warn them ahead of time. And then go into the bathroom, and here are some things you can say. What you want to do, let me back up for a second. You want to look for the too muchness factor or the too little factor. Use that.
Right.
So I want you to go into the bathroom and say, I am so excited about this person. Wow, and you go, uh-oh. That's a big red flashing light, okay? And usually what happens is we fall so much for chemistry, and that's what we're looking for. And boy, once again, just like intuition, that chemical connection can be really strong, but really unhealthy and wrong. So watch out for that, or watch out for the other side. This person, I don't know. And what often happens, this is a true story. When I first met my husband, he was the executive director, and he's a psychologist, and I was one of the staff therapists. And we had strictly a professional relationship for a year because I was a clinical director, and we had to meet all the time. And I had zero attraction to him, zero, minus zero. And then and then minus
zero. I love it.
It was minus zero. I wasn't the least bit, okay. And as I got to know him, because you meet every day to go over clients and staff and everything. And I began to learn about him. And I remember one day leaving the office, sitting in my car, and this overwhelming thump came onto my chest, like just pop, and the words that came through my head was, oh my God, I'm in love with my boss. And I knew signals. And I said, why did I miss the signals? So here's another good tip. Remember the exaggerate the too muchness, or in my case, I'm not even remotely interested, the too littleness. Say to yourself, think about this for a second. Would this person fit well in my family? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? Or would this person not fit in my family? And is that a good thing or a bad thing? In my case, my husband would not have fit in my family. And yay, that was a really good thing. I didn't want to fit into that environment.
I love it.
Right.
Yes.
So those are two really good things. And to add a third one, and this is really good, especially for Valentine's Day, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But say to yourself, let's pretend the date is over or halfway done, and I'm getting on the phone with my best friend, and I'm saying, you won't believe what happened on this date. He or she, and then fill in the blank and see what comes out.
Yes. I've done that many a time. That walk home from the date going, ooh, I got to call my friend for this. Yes. And it's so true.
Yes.
And it's a positive or a negative. Like, you won't believe blah, 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 or you won't believe blah, blah, blah.
Exactly.
Yes, I love it.
So let's talk again about Valentine's Day. You know, Valentine's Day is one of made-up holidays to sell flowers, candy, dinner, candles, you know, movies, whatever. And
good old Hallmark holiday.
Yeah, cards. I left that one out too. Oh yes, big overpriced cards, you know, because they have buttons on them or something, or songs or whatever for you to spend a lot of money to get a card. So think about this. If you don't have anyone to be with on Valentine's Day, and let's face it, it's out there in the air. There's no way that if you don't have anyone to be with Valentine's Day, that there isn't some little twinge of, oh my God, it's Valentine's Day, because it's out there. You know, you can't just say,
exactly.
Oh, forget it. You know, it's there. Okay. So here are some things you can do if you are single. One is get together with your friends and volunteer somewhere. Call now, start now before it's too late. Call whatever cause interests you, the soup kitchen, the children's hospital. Ask them if they're accepting some volunteers to do something. What do they need? Because when we give to others, boy, do you feel good about yourself. So that's one thing. You can
like that.
I've done that. I remember, you know, I wasn't married my entire life. I had to be single at some point. So I did some of it. I got together with people who I hardly knew at work, and I said, why don't we meet at such a bar? It was kind of, you know, a nice bar. We could all get together, and everybody bring another single friend, preferably of the opposite sex. You know, it could be your sister or someone you dated and it didn't work out at college. And, you know, you get to meet new people. And then everyone has something to do.
Exactly. And I think that's a great idea. And I think it's so important, too, that admit everybody's in the same boat. Like, people talk a lot about, I want to get my New Year's Eve kiss. That's a big thing. But if it comes or it goes, it's not the end of the world. But there is something about Valentine's. And I have to say, in all my years as a professional matchmaker, I've had a lot of clients that almost don't want to date right before Valentine's because they feel like there's all this pressure to see if they'll be their Valentine, when either way, it can still be a casual Valentine fun. Or I notice with my business, it gets really busy right after Valentine's. Like, everyone's like, okay, I made it through the holiday. Now I'm pissed. Now I want to find somebody. And I think we so often forget to just cherish the moment. It's a great holiday if we use it in a positive way instead of, oh, I'm single once again.
And you can have an unvalentine event. That's why I also like. That's why I like undating. I don't like dating. Hang out. Bring all your friends together. Have people meet your friends, their friends. You know, get a group together. You could go on an unvalentine. You could say, you know what I really would like to do on Valentine's Day? For example, here where I live on the Gulf Coast of Florida, a lot of people just drive to one of the local beaches and they hang out there at sunset. And there's all these people you could be talking to. You know, there's so many other things you can do. Find out what that is in your area.
And it is. There's so many fun things to do, and there's fun ways to hang out. And it's just a day about love. If you have a romantic, interacting relationship, Awesome. Have some fun as a couple. But if you're single, go out with people that you love. Go out and have it be special in its own way in order to attract that next level of positive energy that is so important.
I like those little, I forget what those candies are called, that are little hearts and they have sayings on them. I forget.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They have a name, but I can't remember.
I know. Little Valentine heart candies. I don't know if they have a special name.
Buy a box of those. Go to a bar with a girlfriend or a guys or a bunch of friends. When you're in the grocery store, you know, I met people standing in line in the grocery store, going to the Walgreens or CVS or whatever, going to the dry cleaner. I talk to anybody. I talk to kids, grandmas, guys, women. Talk to people, and especially on Valentine's Day, give them a little candy. Hi.
Yeah.
Valentine's Day.
Exactly.
Really?
And like those Dove candies, the chocolate, they have it when you unwrap it. There's some positive words inside.
Oh, cool.
So those are cute ones too. But, you know, just if you don't have enough love coming to you, then sending it out to others is huge. I mean, that's making it a more positive scenario. But now, if you are a couple, what would you recommend as some fun things to do during the Valentine's?
Well, that's between you and your couple and your partner. You can decide, do we really want to do the flowers and candy route? I don't particularly like flowers because they start to die, and then it makes me feel awful. I don't like it, and I don't eat candy. I have a list of food allergies about that long, so I can't eat milk chocolate and half the other stuff that's in it, so that's not good for me. So you have to make a contract with your partner. You know, it doesn't have to be a big blowout thing to prove that you're loved. You know, do something, your favorite thing in your hometown, or something you've been wanting to do. It doesn't have to be anything that is going to have fireworks in it. Just something between you and your partner that's important.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Exactly. No, I think you're so right on that.
You know, let's watch that movie we taped and make some popcorn. It doesn't have to be anything. It's you and your partner decide. So get it out of your head that this is the one chance you and your partner have to show how much you love each other, or to use it as a litmus test. Oh, boy, he didn't buy me flowers. I had a client one time tell me, she came to see me after Valentine's Day, and I'm really glad you mentioned that you get people after Valentine's Day. She was so disappointed because her boyfriend didn't buy her flowers. He took her to the most expensive restaurant, bought her a pretty card and some earrings, but he didn't buy her flowers. Now, really? You really need to feel loved that deeply and to have that wound, you know, fixed so much that you had to have every little thing? Now, that's a major, that's a major.
It's so true. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up too, because, you know, as you know, and many of our listeners know, love language is powerful, and we all have our thing. And sometimes the flowers is a way of saying I'm validated, but we also have to realize, like on Valentine's, they quadruple the price of a flower that the next day is going to be 25% less. And it's ridiculous. Because of that, we have to stop and think as adults, okay, what is the person doing? How are they using that? Instead of thinking, well, why didn't I get the dozen roses? It's, well, you know what? For the same price of the dozen roses, you got a nice dinner and earrings and a card. And, you know, we forget sometimes that when somebody's doing something wonderful for us, it might not be necessarily our love language, but it's how they need to give that message. So you've really brought up an important part where we focus on what we didn't get instead of noticing what we did get, and then appreciating that in his mind, those earrings were like a bouquet of flowers. So it's learning how to understand the difference.
And take responsibility. My husband and I don't exchange gifts on Valentine's Day. We just feel it feels forced. We buy each other nice cards, and we might go for a walk on the beach, and it's not a big deal to us. I wouldn't feel very good if we did absolutely nothing, but it's not important. For us, our anniversary is very important, and I love to celebrate my birthday. My husband doesn't care one way or the other, but I love my birthday because
absolutely.
My mother died so young, and it put that little bee in my bonnet that said, cherish every year you have. And I know that I sound like a fortune cookie right now, but that is really, truly what's in my heart. And I am so grateful to live this long because my mother died in her 40s. And anyone who, that's really pretty young these days. And so it was
absolutely. And you know, I love that you know that you really want to honor your birthday from how you were raised, experience of losing your mom at a young age. And in that balance, you understand that he doesn't really need a big birthday. And that's okay, because too often we're like, I want a big birthday, so I'll spoil them for their birthday. And they're like, why are you doing that? And then later you kind of go, well, no, aren't you going to spoil me back? It's like, well, no, because unless they learn the value of birthday to you, they're going to treat the birthday the way they want their birthday treated. So it's so important listening to that inner intuition that you talk so beautifully about to help understand how important that is.
You know what your partner wants. My husband said to me a long time ago, no surprise parties. Don't go there. I said, sign me up for no surprise parties either. So it's so important to know your partner, and you can't know your partner unless you get rid of the things that prevent you from knowing yourself. So that's all the keys here. And again, that goes back to, what do I know about myself? What are the tells coming from my body that are saying to me, this is a good thing or a bad thing, and should I trust it? And that's why I like it for singles to go into that bathroom and say to yourself, again, is there too muchness, too littleness? Would this person fit in my family? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Or would they not? And is that a good or a bad? Those two questions, that set of questions, will give you a whole world of understanding yourself.
Oh, and I love your question about fit in the family or not. I have one child that's very particular about how people are, and it's so good because I'll be on a date and I'll stop and go, will my son appreciate this person, or will he be giving me a bad time for a long time? And if he's going to give me a bad time, he's always spot on. That he reads people extremely well, and he sees a deeper level. And I'm like, you know, you're right. That's a vanilla person. I know that he would give me a bad time and know that I'd deserve better. And it's so funny how we hear those voices and we know the good of it working with family and the not so good. And that's often the question. Would he approve in a good way? Like, he helps me think of what my standards are. And I think we have to stop and do that. We have to step back and really own where we want this new person to fit in our life. And I love how you acknowledge that sometimes it's better that it doesn't fit in the family.
Right.
And you were a great example of that.
Yes, absolutely. And I would ask your viewers and listeners to do this one thing. Do something different, like hand out candies, get your friends together for Valentine's Day, volunteer, and don't pay attention to whether you feel anxious. Assume that you're going to feel anxious because it's new behavior. You know, I have a client who said the first time she bought a really nice dress to go to an event and she put it on that night, she was anxious. It was a new look, a different color than she's used to. It suited her perfectly. She, you know, brought it to the office to show me, but it was new to her, and that she wasn't used to looking, in her words, more sophisticated. So new behavior that is good for you and healthy can also make you anxious. So don't rely on anxiety to tell you not to do something, because the anxiety, you're kick yourself a little bit and push yourself forward. Don't worry if you're anxious about something. Do it scared. Do it anyway.
That is so good. That is so important. And it is re-imprinting these thoughts and actions and just giving unconditionally. So as we're just about out of time, I love what you brought in. So what do you have to wrap up all this goodness? Because you always have so much goodness to share. And we could go on for hours, and it's so powerful, talking about New Year's resolutions and really when's the right time, and seasonal resolutions, and really knowing how to be in the right mind thought process for Valentine, and listening to that intuition, asking yourself really pertinent questions. So as we need to say goodbye here in just a couple minutes, what are your last words of wisdom to wrap this all up in a beautiful bow, ready for so much goodness for our listeners?
Believe that intuition is real. There are two scientists, John Kunios and Mark Beeman, who did all kinds of brain scans, and they found that the area right here, behind and above your right ear, gets activated when people talk about their accurate intuition. So it is real. It's important. It plays a major role in decision making, big decisions, small decisions. And you can't trust your intuition until you know what your own unique tells are, your unique fingerprint,
Right.
and that you can compare it to other times in your past when you listened to it or didn't listen to it, and have to kind of unhook what it is that holds you back from seeing what is a good choice or a bad choice. I got so
Yes.
involved in doing this. This work I'm doing now in intuition came out of my research for my current book, because again, everything I say is based on tested findings.
Yes.
So I didn't know what to do with everything that I was learning and finding that my clients needed. So I put them together instead of a book. I put them into workshops. So if they
Oh,
go,
I love it.
if they go to my website, which is lovevictory.com, on the upper part of the website, a little bit towards the right, you'll see some flashing lights that say training your love intuition. Take a look at those workshops. They're not expensive, and they're all in different categories. So maybe your listeners
Wonderful.
will find something that fits.
Yes. And people really, I'm obviously a huge believer in intuition, and I do a lot of spiritual work and really tapping into that and watching clients transform and actually start noticing when they're hearing these things and they're listening to their body respond, how much their lives change. So I'm excited for our listeners to go to your site, learn more, and really take responsibility for what they have the power to shift. This is a very committed process, but simple process. And once it comes together and makes sense, then you start having really the Rolodex of information for so many future things you need. But it's kind of like a muscle. You got to keep working it. So
Yes.
I love that you bring this in.
And you know, I don't like selling things. It's terrible. But please, if you're not interested, that's fine. But at least I would appreciate people going to my website, Love Victory, and just sign up, because there are gift books to receive. And then from time to time, I'll be doing some free talks like this, and it would be nice if they could put themselves out there to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. No, what you have to share is so powerful, and I am so happy to have you a part of our Discover Love Academy. I know our listeners are just beaming with repeating a lot of the words that you've said for when they got to go take that quick little bathroom break, realign themselves, ask after a date, things that they need to know, good and the bad, what's resonating with them, and giving themselves permission to truly move forward. So I thank you so much, LB. You have given us abundance. I can't wait till next quarter what you have for us. And you've definitely given all of our listeners tools to work with so that they'll be ready when we get connected again in a few months.
Thank you, and happy resolutions, new Valentine's Day, and the rest of your life for everybody. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a privilege and an honor, and I am excited to hear the feedback. Everyone's love story is getting even bigger.
Thank you. Thank you very much.